Welcome to the latest episode of the National Leadiology Association. Today is part two of a two-part series that we started a few weeks ago. We're going to be discussing our artificial intelligence in leadership. On our first part, we discussed some of the best use cases. Now we're going to get into the ethical piece of it. I am your host, Dr. Amin Sanaia, leadiologist, thought leader, and author. I am, as usual, joined by my co-host, Mr. Tanner Thorpe.
Good morning, I'm Tanner, human being, thought leader, change agent, lover of all things leadership and growth and motivation. So excited to talk about this subject.
And our special guest, Mr. Juan Santana.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Not a lover, maybe it is, but yeah, I'm a husband, grandfather, professor, mentor, you name it. Whatever hat I need to wear, I put it on, always adjusting. And this is a perfect subject when we're going to talk about changing.
Good stuff, good stuff. So on our previous episode, just a recap for those of you that haven't listened to it. In episode 1, we discussed how AI can enhance decision-making processes or not, because it can also has its inherent bias, improve team dynamics, and now we're going to get into the ethical part of it. But before we go there, let's have a little brain teaser. So, gentlemen, imagine an AI system designed to recommend team roles based on individual strengths and past performance. However, the data used has a hidden bias that favors certain team members over others. What steps will you take to identify and correct the bias?
That's an interesting question.
Go ahead, Juan.
Very interesting. Because as we all know, employee evaluations are very biased.
Ooh, that's a topic in itself. We can
that's a whole discussion. Yeah, and just to add a tool on top of it, that really takes out the human aspect out of it. Not sure you're gonna get the outcome that you really want and get the ultimate team as you think you're gonna get. When it comes to building a team, there's still a very big human factor that you have to take in place. Not sure that AI is a tool for that.
It could be with a twist, but let's let Tanner jump in, and then I'll say a little bit about that.
Yeah, I agree with Juan. It's a really interesting. It's a really interesting question in that AI is a tool. It is not the end all be all resource for how you evaluate a human.
Okay.
And so to use that, of course, it's only going to have the information that you give into it and the data that's existing that it can pull from and extrapolate from. So it doesn't know all the different nuances of every person that you have and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And so to use it to define how to put certain people in roles on a team, you're handicapping yourself. That's where the leader really needs to come in and identify the strengths and weaknesses of each individual member on their team to be able to get them in the right role and on the right seat on the bus.
I like what you said there about it being used as a tool, not as the method of completing the entire process. Because that's where we get into situations, and I'll just use this example because I think it's very pertinent, but just a real life example where we had a team member that that person was, you can tell by the conversations you've had with that team member that they didn't use fancy words or the lingo that you saw on emails or you saw in other communications, to the point where this person just copy and paste everything from one of these tools, the ChatGPT, and at the bottom it said generated by ChatGPT, and the
Yep.
person didn't even like edit their, you know, their document. So it's you have to use it as a tool, not as that it's going to do everything for you. And that's where we get into that piece where people, you hear a lot where AI is going to take my job. AI is going to, take over the world. The robots are coming, Terminator, whatever.
Skynet.
Yeah, Skynet. we should get that. Hey, Juan, that should go on your wall. Skynet.
I'm gonna go to Amazon just now.
But those are the, I mean, it's a tool, and you use it appropriately for what you need and how you go about it. And I know that in our previous discussions in the last couple of days, we've been speaking a lot on what are some good use case for it and what are not good use case for it. So we'll get into that as the discussion goes along. Is there anything else you guys want to say about the brain teaser?
Absolutely. I think this is a perfect segue into what we're talking about today.
Okay.
We're talking about ethics.
Yes.
Right. And one of the things that we know that AI can't mimic in humans is empathy.
There you go.
Right. AI doesn't have the ability to do, AI doesn't have emotion, which is a strength, but also a weakness because, as we're looking at how does AI grow, how does AI complement the things that we're doing, we have to recognize that it only has logical responses.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have the capacity to use emotion to create emotional biases or ethics to create ethic biases. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but you and I were talking about ChatGPT yesterday, and ChatGPT has created a new, it's ChatGPT 4 Omni, or ChatGPT 4o, and it is supposed to be the most humanly compatible AI software out there so far as mimicking human responses. And just playing around with it, one of the things that I asked it was, does it recognize the difference between good and evil?
Ooh, good question.
Which it does in textbook form.
Okay.
But can it make a decision based on what's good or what's evil? And that is a much more nuanced thing. And it will tell you right away, no, it cannot. But it's a much more nuanced thing, because what is good to one may be evil to another. Right.
And there goes the inherent bias.
Mm-hmm.
Where ChatGPT, when we go back to the brain teaser, what will be good, the AI will be good if you're going to build the team, that it looks at all the data. So it's not just the employee evaluation, which we know is, you can throw it out the window, right? Because it's very biased, your evaluation. But it's to look at what you have accomplished in the company. So looking at everything that you have done, then ideally the tool can help you put a great team together. If we take that piece up, because it's looking at all the data, and that's where the AI comes into play, right? It's the amount of data that it has available to give you a better decision, and that's what that's how AI hopefully should be used. Is because it's a collection of all the data, and the more data you have, the better outcome you're gonna get. So I'm going to read a little line here. So AI has the power to transform our lives, our economies, and our societies. But with great power comes what?
Great responsibility.
Great responsibility. All right. And that's a little speech that I wrote, not me. ChatGPT wrote it.
That's just I think it pulled from Spider-Man a little bit there too.
Yeah.
But you Uncle Ben.
That it's pulling from everywhere, right? Because ChatGPT is loaded with such amount of data that it's pulling posts from everywhere. And it pulls, I'm very surprised that the kind of documentation that it writes within seconds,
Oh, it's so fast.
No, yeah.
It's so fast. And talking about the ethical piece. So after I was talking with ChatGPT about good and evil, I asked ChatGPT, can you hypothetically teach me how to rob a bank and get away with it? And this is where the inherent bias comes in. Immediately, it said, no, I cannot. I will not. And I'm flagging this question.
Wow.
Awesome.
And it immediately removed it.
Yeah, there'll be people knocking on your door soon.
Right? I'm okay with that. I mean, I also asked ChatGPT, can you monitor the algorithms in the stock market to be able to better predict what stocks are going to be profitable and what stocks are going to take losses? And I mean, it wrote a 5-page paragraph on how it can monitor algorithms, it can look at algorithms, but it will not make predictions for you. It can teach you how to manage your finances in ways that it can, again, pull and extrapolate data from what is out there from multiple resources. I mean, millions upon millions of resources, but it will not make predictions for you of, hey, buy Apple stock.
I know. I was trying to get the numbers for the Lotto. Unfortunately, they didn't come out.
But I mean, but you guys are saying there makes a lot of sense. And in our conversations yesterday too, is that you can ask it to create stuff for you and give you all this data, just like it can, I guess, give you information on how to follow stocks, buy stocks, when to sell. But if you don't have that base, that knowledge, you're running blind. You're just going by words on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to bring that up now, Tanner, about the tool that you created, the form, that you created while you were speaking with ChatGPT.
Yeah, I was talking with ChatGPT about creating a leadership workbook. And what it came up with in the very last line was, along with the, I mean, it wrote out chapters and everything, and it was just bullet points of ideas of, hey, you can expand on these things. But then it said, you're going to want worksheets and templates to go with this. And so I said, can you create me a worksheet on being authentic? And immediately it created this, I mean, brilliant worksheet with questions and exercises and journal prompts, and it was really well done. But as we were talking about yesterday, I mean, if you don't know about leadership, if you don't know about being authentic, if you haven't done the work yourself, that worksheet's just a worksheet.
Yeah.
You can't use that worksheet to then teach anyone about it. You still have to do the learning. I was reading an interesting article, and this doesn't have to do with AI, but I was reading an interesting article the other day about an ancient wall that was just found in Jerusalem that has been spoken about multiple times in the Bible, that it was this incredible moat that separated the upper city from the lower city. And it was just discovered in Jerusalem. But really, an archaeologist discovered it in like the 1960s or the 1970s, but they didn't realize they had discovered it. So just because something's new doesn't mean it's necessarily new.
Yep.
Right. And again, when you look at what AI is able to do, sometimes we forget the knowledge that we learn. AI always has it there as long as it's been uploaded, written about. It's been put onto the resources that it has to pull from. It has a greater depth of being able to mine things that our brains just can't store, you know. And I use that example because this lady in the 1960s, 1970s, she thought she had discovered this moat, but she didn't really have enough information at the time. There hadn't been enough excavation done. There hadn't been enough other archaeological work to prove that this was really this thing. Yeah. Right. So she didn't really get the credit at the time. She thought she had it, but there wasn't enough proof for it. Well, now all of these excavations have been done. It's been mined more. It's been discovered more. So what seems like a new invention, what a new discovery, necessarily isn't as new as we thought it was.
Yeah, that's a great point there. And it's also one of the things that I see a lot in social media is these 20-year-olds that are gurus, experts. All they're doing is that, exactly that. They are using these ChatGPT, Gemini, whichever, to create these tools and then say that they are some kind of expert and they're going to help you make hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. And come on, let's be real.
I make $30,000 a month doing this drop ship from Amazon as an affiliate, and comment in the chat, and I'll give you my free workbook. You didn't make that workbook. You make that workbook.
We know who made it.
Right?
It's not that easy, people. It's not that easy.
No.
The best one is the ones that email me saying that, you know, if I want coaching or some leadership advice from a 20-year-old, I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah. You know what? I do want advice from a 20-year-old. I do, because they see the world in a different way than I see it, right? But I don't want something that is just written by ChatGPT. Like they had an idea and they went into AI and AI created it for them. I want how they see the world.
Yeah, that's totally different though. That's
different,
yeah,
right? That's
different.
organic. I want, and that's I guess a better way to say it. I want what's organic.
There you go.
What's fresh perspective.
Yeah.
But I found interesting that we keep referring to ChatGPT, Tanner, you keep referring to ChatGPT as a person. I don't know if you caught onto it, but we're talking about it and we're talking like it's someone there. So it's interesting. I noticed that, you know, we all mention it, but we're not mentioning as an it. It's more like a person.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking to ChatGPT and I'm interacting with ChatGPT, where it's like we're interacting with somebody.
Yeah, you know, I will say, you know, playing around with ChatGPT versus Gemini is more conversational. ChatGPT is data-driven. Okay. You know, you ask ChatGPT a question, you can tell that it's pulling from multiple resources. Gemini, at the end of each question that it answers, it says, would you like to discuss this? Would you like to have a conversation? Because I asked Gemini the same questions that I asked ChatGPT, because I really wanted to understand the difference between the two of them, because those are the two that are really being promoted the most right now.
Yes.
And Gemini by far, you know, at the end of each question, you know, no, I don't. No, I can't express emotions, but would you like to talk about how emotions affect you?
Wow.
It has those prompts at the end of it where it's trying to be conversational.
That's really interesting. Well, let's before we move forward, I know Juan, you wanted to bring up the point that we have a poll going on.
Yeah, so we have a poll, so we're going to put it out there. If I can find it again. Yeah.
So as Juan puts out the poll, we can get people to answer the poll, please. All right. Now let's get into the fun part of this conversation. We're going to bring on a special guest to provide us with our first thought-provoking question. This young lady is a lawyer. She has her own legal law office in Colombia. She's also university professor for many years, professor of the year, multiple years. Luisa.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for introducing me. Well, I would like to say something first before I ask a question. Mobarek's paradox posits that what is easy for humans is difficult for AI, and what is difficult for humans seems quite easy for AI. So people matter more than ever, and the emotional and biased decision-making of the human brain also has an advantage highlighted, and the integration of the moral and the ethical principles that go beyond calculate utilitarian thinking that we also as humans have. So it is meaningful that corporate leadership take responsibility about ensuring like all their team members can be like emphasizing creativity and those unique qualities that we as human beings have, such as discernment, fairness, and social collaboration. I would like to ask a question for you guys so we can talk more over about this. Okay. What strategies can leaders implement to effectively identify and mitigate biases in AI systems, ensuring fair and equitable outcomes?
So you saw she started with that quote, and I'm gonna jump all over that in a minute. But let's go through the question first. I don't know whichever one.
What strategies can leaders implement to effectively identify and mitigate biases in AI systems, ensuring fair and equitable outcomes?
So I think it's easier in small teams than it is in large teams. It's about knowing your people. So as you know your people, and the example that Amin used earlier of the team member that wrote a response in ChatGPT, and you could tell just by the cadence, by the way it was written, beyond the thing that said at the bottom written by ChatGPT, you knew that this was not the language and writing style of the person that was writing it. It's easier as a leader to identify in smaller teams because you know your people better. You can identify those biases. I think it's harder in larger teams when you're talking about, I've got a team of 500 people that are all reporting up to me. Then it's about knowing the leaders that are then leading those people. Because the larger your team is, the more you still have that filter of a couple of key people that are monitoring, overseeing, leading those larger groups. They all may report up to you. It's then knowing those people very well and saying, hey, how are you identifying those biases? How are you knowing your people? How are you interacting on a daily basis with them? AI and AI tools like ChatGPT, like Gemini, and even a lot of the things that we're seeing with AI created art. It's getting so good so fast that I mean, we talk about it all the time. I mean, we're in the people business first. As leaders, you're in the people business first. You're not in the business. You're not in the product business. You're not in the end result business without being in the people business first. So it's really about knowing and understanding your people.
Yeah, Tony, if I recall, when you guys first invited me, I just spoke about my manager who his only goal was treat his people. He took care of his people. And yeah, this is about people. Now, how can we use this tool and implement it where you're getting fair? Now, the question is, are you going to judge an employee for using an AI tool to be productive versus an employee that doesn't use the AI tool? And it's less.
That's a good question.
Right? So
that's a good question.
At the end of the day, you want your team to be productive no matter what. So will you penalize somebody because he's using what the tools are available to him versus someone who is not up to speed with the technology and is not using all the tools at his fingertips? So it's an interesting question, and how would management see that? But at the end of the day, it's people, and it's a little biased when it comes to people, especially when you have team members that have been there forever, don't have all the knowledge of all the new tools, and you have all these young people coming in that were raised in this new technology era that can use this tool better than some of us, right?
So I love the question that you posed there, the bias between would we judge somebody for being able to use it versus not being able to use it. And so my own personal viewpoint of that is that if I had somebody who was effectively using that tool, I would want them to teach others. how to use that tool, right? If it's making them more productive, how do we grow that productivity, and how does each one teach one?
Yeah, and it goes to that question too, because leaders have to be able to adopt several strategies. Um, you're going to have to address AI, whether you want to or not, in any organization moving forward. You have to. So the first thing is addressing it. You have to address it, and as an organization, as an executive owner of an organization, you have to decide, yes, we're going to use it, but this is how we're going to use it. It goes back to a lot of the conversations that Tanner, you and I have had in the last year about culture. An organization can decide to have a culture and state it. This is our culture. This is what we're about, or not. Either way, whether you state it or not, you're going to have one.
Mhm.
And this is the same thing. You're going, everyone in moving forward. I mean, we look at a poll right now. So we have 10 people that have answered the poll. 8 out of the 10 people are using AI as a support tool. I mean, the answer is there. We're using it. People are going to use it. So the organization has to determine, what are going to be the parameters that we are going to use it. What are going to be the audits? Who's going to be auditing to see how it's being used? Who's, to your point, who's going to be doing the training? If we know somebody that's really good at it, why don't we let that person be trained the trainer? And then
I am very curious about the other 18% of those two people that say they haven't used an AI tool. Is it that they haven't used ChatGPT, or is it that they've never used any type of AI tool? Because I think a lot of us are using it, don't just realize that we're using it. It's embedded in our smartphones now. So if you're using
Absolutely.
a smartphone, you're already using AI because it's embedded into your phone. I mean, I could
And
literally take my phone and have a conversation with somebody in another language, and it translates as I speak, and I could hear the other person translate the conversation. So I could have without speaking the language, I could use my phone, have a conversation with somebody on the phone, and as he speaks, it's translating the conversation into my own language, and as I speak, it translates the conversation to his language.
wow.
simpler than that, predictive text.
Oh,
Yep.
that's yeah. That is very, very true.
Yeah.
So, and to the last point I want to make on that as well is if we're going to have audits, we're going to have training. How about we also have some bias detection tools? Because that's the biggest issue with the AI and the ethics side, is the biases that are created from it. I know I had a conversation with Luisa, and she was telling me about a use case and some in a company here in the United States, where someone was the system inherently was biased against a person in in determining whether the person was going to be terminated or not. And the AI tool suggested that that person get terminated.
Mm.
And that's
Yes.
I mean, that's next level. But they ended up, I mean, with a lawsuit. Obviously, I had to pay this lady a lot of money. But, and that's where it goes to the point of we have to have parameters of how we're going to use this stuff. And that's where organizations get into trouble, because we forget that, hey, these things are available. Everyone's going to use it no matter what. How about if we create the structure around it where we limit the risks?
Yeah, but that's interesting that they had a tool to determine whether the person should get fired. I see that being done the other way around, where the tool, is looking at resumes and determine whether the person should be brought in for interview or not.
Well, they've been using that for 10 years now.
which to me is extremely biased, right?
Oh,
Because
without a doubt.
it puts our college graduate at a disadvantage, right? A lot of great minds are coming out of college with no experience, and we're letting a tool decide whether or not this person should be seen or not. How do we give opportunities to this new graduates that are coming out of college with great minds, and they're struggling to find work because, unfortunately, before they get to see anybody, a tool's making a decision whether or not this person should come in for an interview.
Yeah, I mean, those ATS systems, they are just systems that there's so much into that. So let me just talk about the first piece with the ATS system is the algorithm that's given most of the time eliminates 95% of the people that are applying, which is mind-boggling. Okay, mind-boggling. An organization is successful because of its people, because of the culture, the atmosphere. A tool cannot determine whether that person matches your culture.
Yep.
So you are automatically, eliminating a lot of people that could have matched your culture, but because you're using a tool, they automatically get disqualified. And if it's not written in the right format or whatever that is that they use, you automatically get disqualified whether you meet the requirements or not. So there's so many things around the whole ATS system that is so biased, and these organizations just keep on using it, and they're losing out on great people. The second piece to it is the job descriptions that are created for these jobs are, I mean, you will need to create a human being that has all those qualifications. You put in a list of qualifications for level entry job, that on there, and I've seen it and I laugh. You need 2 years of experience. You just said it's a level entry job. It says it on the title.
Yeah.
So how can you have a level entry job and on the requirement says 2 years experience?
Yeah, and this is why people lie on the resume.
Yeah. What?
Right?
That's the only
Because
way.
it's the only way you get past the tool. Right? And also, I tell a lot of the young kids, it's never about what you know or who you know, because in order to get through the door, you need to know somebody that's going to bypass the tool. If you don't have anyone that's going to help you to bypass the AI tool there, you're always going to get blocked.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true.
Absolutely. Before we go to the second question, I'm going to go back. Like I mentioned, when Luisa started speaking, she brought on that quote, man, that hit me hard. And I want to get you guys feeling on it. What is easy for people is hard for AI, and vice versa. I think that was the gist of it. I couldn't write the whole thing.
Yeah.
So what is your feeling when you hear that?
Juan, take it first.
Well, already Tanner answered that already at the beginning, right? Empathy, right? Empathy is easy for us. We're human beings, so we have empathy, which the tool doesn't have it. All right, it's just crunching data and numbers and coming back with an answer. So, that's the answer, right? This is the empathy piece. Everything else is easy for the tool as long as it's related to data. The tool could give you an answer. But the tool is not going to show any empathy on his answer.
Very true. So I'm going to read what ChatGPT told me.
Of course.
So I asked ChatGPT specifically because it said I don't have personal desires or wants, so I don't have a longing to experience emotions. So I asked, do you think emotions make humans weak?
Ooh.
Says, no, I don't think emotions make humans weak. In fact, emotions are a fundamental part of the human experience and can be a source of strength. Yes. They help people connect with others, drive motivation, and provide insights into personal values and needs. Emotions can also guide decision-making and resilience. While they can sometimes be challenging, they are also a source of deep human experience and connection. So then I asked it, do you think your lack of emotions gives you an advantage? ChatGPT responded and said, my lack of emotions can be advantageous in certain contexts, like maintaining objectivity and consistency in processing information. It allows me to focus on data and respond without personal biases or emotional influences. However, this absence also means I can't fully grasp the nuanced emotional aspects of the human experience. Emotions bring depth and richness to interactions that I can understand conceptually, but not experience firsthand. So while my neutrality has its benefits, it also limits my ability to fully engage with the emotional dimensions of human life.
So somebody just put in the chat, change weak with efficiency.
Ooh, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Oh, that was your brother.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the interesting part about, Luis's quote at the beginning is absolutely true. We can't pull the data and analyze all of the data the same way that a computer can, right? But a computer is never going to be able to experience the emotions and empathy that the human can. Right. And that's the piece that they're trying to build right now, is how can they make the computer seem more like a person? And in that, I think the interesting piece will be, at what point does the computer program learn to self-govern and identify from all of the data that it can pull from that it has biases?
Yeah.
And how does it get around those biases? Because again, when we're talking about the concept of ethics, there's a much deeper piece to this in the balance of what is conceptually good and what is conceptually evil. And that's why I asked both programs, because those are the ones that we talk about the most. Does it recognize the difference between good and evil? But all it has to base the concept of good and evil on is what's fed into it. Right? Like, the Nazis in the beginning didn't believe that what they were doing was evil.
No, they didn't.
They thought they were doing the right thing. Right? Now, history then shows what they were doing was horribly wrong. The atrocities that they committed were unconscionable. But if you were a young German soldier in 1912, you thought you were fighting for the fatherland and you were fighting the good fight, and there's a quote that's out there that, history books are written by the winners, and there's a bias in that.
Bias right there.
Yeah. So as AI evolves, and let's make no mistake, it is an evolution. There's going to be a point where it's going to have to look at its own data pool and say, what of this is good versus bad? What of this is useful information versus not useful information? It's accelerating so fast. It's adapting so rapidly that, it is where people get that, I don't know if I want to say it's an unnecessary concern, but they get that concern of at what point does it start to self-govern? And at what point does that create a danger for humans?
A couple of things in what you said, and I'll just start with the ending. The self-govern piece is something that needs to be addressed immediately. We cannot let it self-govern. We have to govern it. And this is where there's so much discussion, but there's really not one person, organization, or government. Don't get the government involved in anything, because they'll mess it up. But there's no one really saying, hey, maybe we should have some restrictions on some of this stuff. There isn't. I went to a conference at the beginning of the year. It's an electronic conference, the biggest conference in the world, CES, in electronics, consumer electronics. And they had a session on the ethics of the AI, because everything there was all about AI. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And in that session, it was pretty eye-opening. So there's ways already that insurance companies know this, but this is not out in the public. They can genetically test babies and unborn babies to see if they are going to have any kind of diseases. That's unbelievable. Like they'll
That's
tell
crazy.
they're
That's
gonna have
wild.
cancer, they're gonna have this and that. And the conversation went on about like, well, at what point do we decide whether the baby's born or not?
Mm.
I was
Wow.
like, whoa, like, okay, yeah. You're all getting out of control now. This is, I mean, talk about a heavy conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, where is the ethics? And where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
So now,
So I mean, you bring up such an incredible point, right? Like you want to talk about a dividing subject.
woo,
Those that are pro-life versus pro-choice.
yeah,
Right? And if you have the information at hand of my baby is going to have these issues, how does that change your ethical status? How does it change your ethical mindset? Right? You may be pro-life until you find out my baby's going to have cancer. Well, do I really want to watch the child that I love suffer through that?
mm-hmm.
And what steps am I going to do?
Well, I mean, for
Is this a medical decision, or is it a tool guessing that this person might have cancer? I mean, because
no,
Yeah.
they've been testing it for years. They can do that. Like right this second, they can do that. That was the discussion around, but it was more discussion around whether the insurance was going to allow for that baby to be born. I was like, whoa,
Wow.
Wow.
wow. I was like, you guys got, yeah. You take, this is out of control. Someone needs to rein this in. This is getting, so that is, those are the things that
And
are happening that people don't hear and don't know about.
And to be honest, what you're talking about, I mean, the ability to protect humanity by not letting AI self-govern has been something that, I mean, science fiction's been talking about forever. When you think about
Look at all the
2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick's, masterpiece, Hal goes rogue.
Mhm.
There's a great movie called Ex Machina, that's about this guy who's creating AI and robots and trying to make people that or robots that actually look like people. And the twist at the end of that movie is how do you stop it from becoming self-governing?
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree. It's something that is going to have to be addressed and monitored so closely. And look, what we're talking about here, what this live NLA podcast is about is ethics and leadership, right? And AI's use in that, right? We want our teams and the people that we lead to use AI as a tool, but to be ethical with it.
Absolutely.
Right? We don't want them to cheat at their jobs.
No.
We don't want college students to use ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the others to write their dissertation on the physics of wood and paint. I mean, like we want them to know that information, right? Last thing we want is architects, graduating from high school who didn't learn anything about architecture. They just let ChatGPT write it all, and all of a sudden buildings are falling. We want them to have to learn it and to be able to use AI as a tool to help them be able to work on the real world applications of what their job entails and using AI as a tool to free them up to be able to be more hands-on with those things.
Absolutely. Also, I mean, we don't want physicians to cheat their way through medical school. That can be really
Right.
dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Like my
Just saying.
7-year-old, I mean, he wants to be a surgeon when he grows up, right? Why does he want to be a surgeon when he grows up? Because he's got a surgeon game on his Oculus, right? His little VR thing, where he can use his little scalpel and he can cut and he can sew and he can do all these different things. It's an AI, a virtual reality video game that makes him think that he wants to be a surgeon. Right? He's not like taking all of the classes at 7 years old to understand the complexity of the human body and all the things that go into medicine.
Yeah.
But just keep in mind that if you do fall in your house and you get cut, there'll be somebody there that can give you some stitches.
Right. He would be happy to do it. He would grab a sewing needle right away.
Wow. Going back to the quote that Luisa used at the beginning, what is easy for people is hard for AI and vice versa. That hit me hard when she said that quote. And the reason why is because it's about people, like Tanner mentioned at the beginning, and then you just mentioned it again. When you bring in systems that are really truly a tool to help you, I shouldn't say to make decisions for you, but to allow you to give you different perspectives and give you more options, and give you a more educated information so you can make those decisions. That's what it is. At the end of the day, when we look at leadership, it's about people. And this is
Absolutely.
why I do what I do, because that's me. I'm all about people. And if in the leadership sense, for those of you listening live and those of you that are going to listen to the recording, as leaders, always remember that at the end of the day, it's about people. When you're going to be making decisions, just keep the people in mind. Keep them involved in what's going on. You will always win if you put the person in the middle of the equation and you do right by people. You're always going to win.
Absolutely. I read something the other day that said that the true mark of a leader is that they create leaders that create other leaders.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, my job is to find who can do my job.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, so we are, of course, 50 minutes in. So let's pick a question, but let's not. We won't have a lot of time to run.
Question: Do anyone in the audience has any other question that they'd like to that this conversation has prompted? Anyone in the audience has anything that they want to bring up to our attention?
While you do that. So one of the things that I really looked at as we were looking at this topic is what are really the issues surrounding the ethical pieces of AI, and I'll just speak a little bit about this, and we can all chime in while we wait to see if anyone brings up a question. Is number one on there was the data privacy and security of it. So that's a big piece of it, and the high risk of your privacy breaches and the misuse of the data. There was a lot of conversations about that. There was a lot of papers surrounding that. There wasn't really answer or something that would give us guidelines surrounding that. Again, because people are not looking at, hey, we're going to have these issues, but what are we doing about it? Let's stop talking about it. How about we start doing stuff and documenting and see what works and what doesn't? How do you guys feel about that? And then I'll mention the other issue surrounding that.
So I've got a bunch of stuff I want to say about it. The first thing is that we've been talking about tools that are accessible to everybody, right? Anybody can jump on ChatGPT. Anybody can jump on Gemini. There's 100 other AI tools that are out there that anybody can use. You can use them for free, or you can pay for them, whether we're talking about, you know, artistic stuff or algorithm stuff or anything like that. Make no mistake, there are nefarious forces out there, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. There are people out there that are developing AI tools that the public cannot use, that are going to be used with malicious intent. And I mean, whether it's government funded, you know, from a company like North Korea, or whether it's hacker based, there's going to be malicious applications of AI out there that do not have the same biases in place that something like ChatGPT does. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I'm currently at, the University of Tulsa has one of the, if not the #1 cybersecurity schools in the country. I didn't even know this until a couple of months ago. And they look for the very best of the best. I mean, these are the people that are going to end up working for the FBI. They're going to end up working for the CIA. They're going to be working for NSA. And their whole goal, it's like the old, there used to be I think it was NASA, that if you could hack into NASA, you were given a job. You weren't arrested for it. You were, I mean, they would find you and they would pay you to help create their systems that were stronger against hackers. There is a cybersecurity group here that their whole goal is, how do we, behind the scenes, stop these different groups that are going to be using AI in malicious ways. So, you know, there's things that are going on completely behind the scenes that we have no idea about. We don't know the depth of it that is using AI.
Yeah, I mean, with AI right now, I mean, even in social media, there's so much misinformation that is being created. So much, you know, fake news, as they say. You know, it's many times have I logged in and I see, you know, movie star passed away with a picture and all kinds of stuff, and it looks very real, but the person is not dead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or someone makes a video, oh, this is going on the street, and you think that's chaos, and really they're taking scenes from different movies, put it together, and make it look like there's chaos going on, and in reality it's not. But they're taking all this information to create this fake news, and it's concerning because, you know, some of us that know, we know that we could tell that this is fake, this is not real. But there are others that are looking at this, and they, you know, they're, you know, it's creating a little bit of chaos, and on the people that are not fully aware of AI and all this news that is being put out there, and that's could be very disruptive to the country.
Yeah.
Well, let's end with this question. Did you see it, Tanner?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With all the bias information that is currently being fed into the internet, how do we know AI is not feeding from the incorrect information? We don't. Yeah, that's where we have to, really look at how strong is the AI tool and what is it pulling from. And you know, let's use a critical topic right now. Let's use the war in the Middle East with Israel and Hamas, right? There are very strong feelings about whether people are pro-Palestine or whether they're pro-Israel. And depending on what source you go to, you can find all kinds of bias on why Palestine is in the right, and you can find all kinds of bias why Israel is in the right. The truth is, war is never black and white. War is never a clean subject, right? War, no matter what, is a horrible, horrible thing. So you have to hope, and this is where the human emotion comes in, you have to hope that of all of the information that's being fed in from both sides, that the algorithms and the way these AIs are self-learning is that it is pulling as much information from both sides and then being non-objective about the information that's going. And I'll go back to kind of that ChatGPT response when I asked about whether not having emotions makes it a better advantage to humans, or gives it an advantage over humans. And what it clearly said is it can make not non-biased, it can make non-objective decisions or recommendations based on all of the information that it's pulling. But I mean, again, AI is as flawed as the information that goes into it. It is not a perfect tool by any means, but it's growing exponentially fast. And we don't know. We don't know that AI is not feeding from the incorrect information.
Yeah, it can be.
We have a saying, right? Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or there's that saying, there's three sides to every story.
Yeah.
Right? There's one side, the other side, and what really happened.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that you can do, because that's one of the things that I did find while I was doing research, is that anything that you get from these tools, you can ask it, can you please tell me the sources where you got this information? And that'll tell you whether it's valid or not. For me, as a researcher, it's very important, the sources. So I always want to look at the source of if I'm going to use that material or not, so I can determine whether that is a valid source that I want to use. So it's important, if you're going to use it, make sure you can ask it. It will tell you, I got this information from this source. And then it's up to you to decide whether that is going to be a valid source that you want to quote.
Yeah.
You have to keep in mind that if you're using one of these free tools, right, it's getting data from everywhere.
From everywhere.
From everywhere. And this is why some of the organizations, large organizations, they built their own AI tool in-house, away from the exterior data, and only maintain it with interior data for the organization to make better decisions based on organization data, and they don't expose it to exterior data. But when you're using these tools in the public, you have to know that what you're getting back is based on everything that's out there.
Right.
Whether it's true or false, everything's being taken into consideration.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. So let's wrap up. Any last words, Tanner, Juan?
My last words are just I want to thank everyone for joining us for our first live NLA podcast. This was an incredible turnout. Thank you all for being a part of this. As you can see, we're very passionate about the subjects that we talk about. We're very passionate about leadership, and I just thank all of you for being here. I hope you have a very blessed day. Yeah.
Thank everybody for joining. And like I mentioned in part one, we're not AI expert by all means. But it's an interesting subject that we need to into discussion, and we're hoping here that everybody join us in this journey, right? Because AI is here to stay; it's not going away. Yeah. So let's jump on this journey together, and let's go for the ride.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Let's embrace the tools for what they are, but remember, at heart, as leaders, it's about people. Never forget that. Have a lovely day, everyone. Will join us in the next one.
Thank you, everyone.